Hello, and welcome to the Field Guides. I'm Steve, and I'm here with Bill. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Steve.
What we're going to do today, and over the course of many future episodes, is give you the experience of what it's like to be out in the field, in the woods, and on the trail. For every episode, we pick a natural history topic, research the science on that topic, head out to a natural area, and share with you everything we've learned. But before I say what the topic of today's episode is, Bill, have you seen the movie Sleepaway Camp?
I have not.
Well, it's a cult classic slasher film from 1983, and I want to play a line from that movie.
All right.
So hold on.
No problem, Gina. Eat shit and die, Ricky. Eat shit and live, Bill.
Whoa! Not expecting that.
Well, that's what today's episode is about. Eating shit and living. Also known as coprophagy. So I want to say, and this is something, as Bill knows, because I was nice and kind of warned him ahead of time, I'm not really much of a team player. So
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, I covered this topic in a way he probably didn't expect me to, or want me to, frankly. So today, I want to talk about poop-eating or coprophagous carnivorous plants.
Oh.
I'm assuming Bill did research on poop-eating animals, so I think he should cover that first, and then I'll follow up with plants.
Oh,
and
I did plants too.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
That's great.
Nepenthes.
Nice.
The pitcher
Okay.
plants.
That's good to know, but I definitely went beyond that.
Okay.
So.
And I think before we really get into things, we should warn the audience that this episode's topic is probably the one we've covered that has the most potential to gross people out. And as you already mentioned, we're covering coprophagia, or coprophagia, right?
Sure.
Depending how you say it.
Yeah.
Eating poop.
Yep.
And maybe if you have a strong gag reflex, you may want to sit this one out.
I don't think so. I think it's fascinating.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it is fascinating, but
Yeah.
I hate the word feces.
Oh, I
So-
say it a bunch.
I'm going to try to avoid that word as much as possible, but I think this may be the one episode where
Yeah.
we have to give it an explicit rating.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just, like, we're going to say the word I think that's unavoidable. And
Yeah.
you can't bleep it out every time.
I was going to say, I bleeped out yours the first time you just said it just now, but how about you say it one more time and I won't bleep it out?
Shit.
There it is.
We normally do bleep out the curse words, but I think on this one, we just have to kind of put it out there that, hey, if you want to avoid the curse words, avoid learning about animals eating poop, skip to the next one.
Yeah.
Or go back and listen to a classic.
Right.
And I think that's a great segue to say where we are right now,
Oh, yeah.
because we are at the site of the very first Field Guides podcast episode.
That's true.
Yeah.
Our goldenrod gall episode.
Yeah, so this is Hunters Creek Park. It's a county park, about 600 acres, but it is very well visited. So we just had a group with dogs go by. I bet we're going to run into a lot of people here today. So
Yeah.
be prepared for interruptions, folks.
I definitely recommend the goldenrod episode because it's different than a lot of the episodes that we've done. Like, first of all,
Because it's boring.
Well, first of all, the editing is really bad. The editing doesn't get good until like the teens, and then we spend a big chunk of it telling you how to like distinguish between different species of goldenrods, and like we look at leaf veins and stuff. It's a very different episode that we don't really do stuff like that in the later episodes.
Yeah,
So
I have a hard time listening to it. We're so nervous, our energy level is quite low.
yeah.
So I can hear the difference. But
Sure.
we've talked before about having an episode 0 because I worry that that's the first episode people listen to. And
Right.
they're like, ugh, these guys are so low energy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else that you want to share at the beginning here?
No, that's it.
All right, so let's define our terms here. Good place to begin. Coprophagia or coprophagy, I saw it listed as both, is the eating of excrement that is normal behavior among animals. And I want to focus on normal behavior there.
Right. I will say it isn't normal behavior for plants
Right.
because it's extremely rare in the plant kingdom.
Right.
too.
But it's actually extremely common in the animal kingdom.
Sure. Yeah.
Us as humans don't normally take part in eating poop, but
Normally, under normal conditions.
under normal conditions. But among animals, you'll be surprised to learn how many animals actually do take part in this behavior.
Oh, so weird.
I'm betting a lot of the audience at least has had some experience hearing about how rabbits do it, and the fact that it allows them to digest tough plant material more thoroughly because it goes through the digestive tract twice.
Got it. So they eat the grass.
Oh, we'll get more on this later.
Okay.
All right?
Got
Don't give
it,
away
got
too
it.
much now.
I don't know anything. I don't know what I'm giving away.
But it's not just rabbits chowing down. It's also mice, beavers, and that includes the American, the Eurasian, and Steve, the mountain beaver.
There's a mountain beaver?
There is a mountain beaver. I didn't know about this.
Is it in North America or not?
It is in North America. It's on the West Coast.
Okay.
It's not related to the American beaver. It actually looks
What do you
like
mean?
It's not. It's a rodent,
Okay.
but it's not closely related to the American. They call it a beaver because it kind of looks like a beaver,
I see.
but honestly, it looks like a muskrat without a tail.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a terrestrial animal. It hangs out in wet environments, but not like a beaver does at all.
I see.
So they gave it that name
A
mostly
misnomer.
because it
Yeah.
kind of looks like a beaver.
Okay.
All right, but it eats poop like the real beaver does.
Great.
And then also dogs, rats, foals, baby horses,
Yeah.
pigs, and some non-human primates, and that's just mammals. But it also happens among insects, fish, and birds.
Wow, okay.
Right? So
I think
lots-
I've seen a fish eat poop.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that.
Yeah. And then the word, it's derived from the Greek kopros, which means feces, and then phagein, which is to eat. But did you know there are 3 different kinds of coprophagy?
I had no idea.
So there's heterocoprophagy,
Okay.
which is eating feces
Of another thing.
of another species.
Yep.
If you eat the feces of other individuals of your own species,
Autocoprophagy?
that's allocoprophagy.
Allo.
Yep.
Okay, allo. I get it. Allocoprophagy. Yep.
And then eating one's own feces? Feces?
I don't
Auto.
Okay, so it was auto. Okay.
Autocoprophagy.
Got it.
All right. Now, I did feel compelled just here at the beginning to talk a little bit about people eating poop. All right.
2 girls, 1 cup.
That did come up.
Okay.
I had no idea what that was about until I started
bless your soul.
the research for this episode. I'm scarred for life because of that now.
Yeah.
All right, so it was described actually since the late 19th century
No.
in people, but usually with people with mental illnesses and in unconventional sexual acts. Yeah, Steve is making a gross out face right now.
I'm not trying to kink shame,
Yeah.
but some kinks are dangerous, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Now, did you know that centuries ago, doctors would taste their patients' feces? I hate that word.
Feces.
Their patients' poop to better judge the patient's state and condition.
That's amazing. I don't disbelieve it, I guess.
Yeah.
One of these episodes, I am waiting for you to tell me something like that, and then wait for me to say, okay, I could believe that. And you're like, nah, I just made that up. There's no way that anyone would ever do that.
All right.
But I can kind of see it. I mean, back in the day when they didn't have like chemical tests, like because you can send in stool samples, you can send in urine samples.
Yeah, but no one's eating it.
But no one's eating it, right? Because nowadays we
No.
have these modern technology and
Right.
chemical tests and stuff. But back in the day, poop is something that can tell something.
Oh, sure.
It's very telling in terms of diseases
What's going on
and
in your
illnesses
body
and
Sure.
potentially cancers and stuff. So
Now, I do have a story, though, here, and I want you to judge, is this true or not?
okay,
All right, during World War II in North Africa, German soldiers, they were suffering big time from dysentery.
okay.
So a lot of them were catching it, coming down with it,
What is dysentery caused by again?
bacteria.
Okay.
Okay? So what they observed, though, was that the Bedouins that lived in that area, this was this nomadic Arab tribe, they didn't seem to come down with it very often, or if they did, they usually recovered within a day. So the soldiers started to watch what the Bedouins did, and they would actually see them picking up fresh camel dung and eating it. And when they talked to them about this, they said, well, that's something that they do traditionally to stave off and treat this illness.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
true or not?
I don't know. Like, I'm just gonna say. So a few episodes ago, I decided that no longer would I try to get the question right if it felt like a trick question. Like, I was just gonna say what intuitively
Yeah.
the answer felt like, and I'm gonna say the answer's no, it's not true. I just feel like you're giving up too much by eating shit. You know what I mean? Like, sure, it might help you with something, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
Like, I'm not a doctor, but I think the cost of eating shit is too big.
too
It's
much to
too,
pay.
too much.
The end doesn't justify the means, right?
Right. If the treatment is worse than the disease,
Well, this turned out actually to be true.
Wow.
So German researchers, they figured out that camel dung is teeming with Bacillus subtilis. And this is a bacteria that eats harmful microorganisms in the intestinal tract.
Wow. How does it know that it's harmful?
Well, it doesn't. It just knows it wants to eat it.
Okay, so it has a particular prey that it goes after. Yeah.
So eventually, the researchers, they would use camel shit to develop a broth that the soldiers would eat.
Wow, a shit broth. Wow.
And then they eventually figured out a method of drying the bacteria. The Bedouins, they always ate it fresh because they learned that when the dung dried, the bacteria died.
Okay.
All right? So
Okay.
it had to be fresh. But eventually the Germans figured out how to dry it and put it in capsules. This led to the development of the antibiotic subtilicin, which I had never heard of.
Subtilicin.
Yeah.
It sounds familiar, but I don't.
I may
yeah.
be saying it wrong, but
Okay.
so that is one record of someone eating poop. And I looked and I couldn't find were there records of people who used this method who suffered ill effects from eating poop, because obviously
Right.
there's going to be bad stuff in there.
But not only that, I guess maybe if they've been doing it traditionally for so long, maybe they have a different like gut flora to begin with, and it's
True.
going to react in different ways. But I will say that this little story you told me, that's just proof that ancient wisdom is far beyond anything that science is. You know, we're just catching up to them, really, if you think about it.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. Throw that opinion in the garbage, actually.
Well, this is one example of them being onto something.
They got something sort of right a little bit sometimes.
And again, I almost feel like we're doing a disservice by terming this coprophagy, because this isn't normal behavior.
Right.
Like, these are extreme circumstances.
Speaking of extreme circumstances,
Yeah.
so I'm sure the audience has heard so far in the episode that it's been raining. I'm just wondering if maybe we can retreat to some like evergreen trees.
There's some hemlocks
yeah.
over here. We can go stand under those.
Yeah.
So why don't we, while we're walking, and before we continue,
Yeah.
we should just say, so we are out here in early November. It's actually November 1st.
No, it's October 31st.
No, that was yesterday, Steve.
Holy cow.
We went trick-or-treating last night. Not you.
Wow.
but-
Yeah, I didn't. I stayed inside my apartment.
So we are in a fall eastern woods, maples, beaches around us.
Mm-hmm.
Very few leaves left on the trees except on the beaches.
Oh, of course.
Yep.
This is a lot better. Okay.
All right, so coprophagia, what I was saying before was I almost feel like we're doing it a disservice calling these records of humans doing it, because it's not normal behavior. All right, but for the purposes of this episode, we're just going to lump them together.
Sure.
So it's also been observed in people with schizophrenia. And then this led me to pica. Do you know about pica?
Oh, I've heard of pica. Is this some... tell me if I'm wrong. Is this something that you can get from... Let's say when like rat feces or mouse feces dry out,
No.
it can get into the air and... Okay.
Pica-
So that's why old cabins are a little dangerous? I don't remember.
You're thinking of hantavirus.
Ah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
totally right. Okay.
So pica is when people eat non-edible things.
Oh,
All right.
got it. Yep.
So this led me to the man Michel Lotito. He was a French entertainer in the 80s and 90s, popular for eating indigestible objects. Have you heard about this guy?
No.
I'd never heard about him. He would break items into little tiny pieces, and he would eat bicycles, shopping carts,
What?
televisions, chandeliers. And over the course of 2 years, he ate a Cessna, an airplane.
What?
Seriously.
This is
And
horrible.
This was not a hoax. This was like the guy actually did it. He would drink mineral oil as he was eating this stuff to, lubricate things. And they studied him and found like the lining of his stomach was stronger than the average human, and his stomach acid was stronger. So I don't want to dwell on this too much because this isn't really what we're talking about. But
Right.
I do have to just point out there were a few, what I have here in my notes is random research highlights. There's a restaurant in Hong Kong called Pica Pica.
Do they serve
I don't
non-food?
I think they just serve regular food, but that
Yeah.
name caught my eyes like, huh. And then, are you a Harry Potter fan?
I mean, I saw the movies.
All
I
right.
wasn't a book guy.
So there
We just
is-
lost half our listeners.
there is a medical term in a person's gastrointestinal tract. Sometimes a mass of indigestible matter gets trapped, and it's called a bezoar.
Bizarre.
So that's something in Harry Potter, they would use a bezoar to counteract poison.
Okay.
So when this came up in my research, I'm like, wait a minute. That leaped out at me because it was something from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But it's a real thing, And historically, people would use a bezoar. It had folklore uses that it would treat almost anything. So people would save these things when they came out of somebody. They would save them, dry them out, and use them to treat like almost any ailment.
Weird.
So yeah. And then the last one, just when I was doing different searches in Google, and it pops up with what it thinks that you want.
Yeah.
One of the questions that came up that Google provided was, why does pooping make me cry? So
Yeah.
I'll let our listeners go down that internet rabbit hole on their own.
Right.
So,
You know what? I was just thinking about it. The guy that ate an airplane, I feel like that could be considered coprophagia depending on the airline.
nice.
I'll be here all week. Or next month, anyway.
All right, so I was about to start talking about coprophagia in animals. We're going to talk mostly about rabbits and rodents, but we'll talk about other ones. But I do want to say something that I forgot at the beginning.
Okay.
We want to thank Matt from Indefensive Plants for recommending this topic.
When do you think he recommended this? How many years ago now?
A long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so this behavior was first reported back in the scientific literature all the way back in 1882. And the author stated that rabbits made two kinds of feces, soft and hard. The soft ones were mucus covered,
Oh.
and they came out during the night, and the hard, dry pellets came out in the daytime. And this is pretty much held up. He did go on to say that the soft feces were taken directly from the anus and swallowed like pills.
Oh. He did this.
No, the rabbits. By 1911, it was widely accepted that not just rabbits, but most lagomorphs consumed their own species.
Yeah, that's still rabbits in my opinion, right? Lagomorphs, aren't they like hares, rabbits?
Well, that's what I was going to stop and say here,
Yeah.
Steve. Most people, well, I shouldn't say most people, but a lot of people think rabbits are rodents.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Well, it's because you know stuff.
Sure, I guess, but I guess before I ever even thought about taxonomy, maybe rabbits were introduced to me as lagomorphs.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
that's why.
All right. Well, I know growing up, I was very often told rabbits, rodents. They're just kind of grouped together.
Sure.
So just to give the listeners who maybe aren't aware, lagomorphs are members of the taxonomic order Lagomorpha. And there's two living families. The Leporidae, who has
Is that hares?
rabbits and hares.
Rabbits and hares? Okay.
And then the other group is the pikas.
Oh, pikas.
Those
Okay.
cute little guys in the mountains that dry out the grasses and whatnot.
Pica?
Yeah, let's not get confused.
They eat airplanes as well.
The eating stuff you shouldn't eat, that's Pica.
And these are PIK?
Yes, you should have been able to tell from my pronunciation. All right. Now, do you know the difference between lagomorphs and rodents?
I guess not technically or physiologically. I don't know.
So both of them, rodents and lagomorphs, they have ever-growing incisors,
Okay.
and there's a space separating those sharp front teeth from the back teeth.
Okay.
All right. But the major difference is that rodents, they have two upper incisors and two lower incisors.
Okay.
But lagomorphs, if you've ever seen a rabbit's skull, and this is how the difference was shown to me when I learned the difference. Someone showed me a rabbit skull, and if you look behind the two front incisors on top, there's actually two more behind there, two smaller ones.
Oh,
So they
that's
have
interesting.
4 upper incisors, and that's one of the big differences.
Interesting.
All right, so let's get back to coprophagia, though.
Mhm.
This process in lagomorphs, in rodents, it serves the same purpose as rumination does, cud chewing, in deer, cattle, those ruminants.
Right.
You know, sheep. Now, do cows have 4 stomachs?
Our cows. I thought they did.
They don't technically have 4 stomachs. They have 4 compartments in their stomach.
Okay.
I always thought they did have 4 stomachs.
Sure.
So it serves the same purpose because each of those compartments does a job of breaking down this plant material that's heavy in cellulose. It has a lot of cellulose, so it's hard to break down, so animals need some way to do that. That's the cud chewing animals. They'll bring it up and chew it more. That's part of the digestion process.
Right.
So other animals have just figured out, well, I don't have to bring it back up. I can just poop it out and send it back down.
Right. Recycle, reuse.
That's right.
Reduce.
They don't want to reduce. So the key to the rabbit's success with coprophagy is the cecum. Have you heard about that?
I don't think I know it.
So it's an organ. It's a blind sac or a pouch that comes off the junction where the small and large intestine meet. Now, we have a cecum. In us, it helps with salt absorption, lubricating solid waste. It does other stuff. But in mammals that practice coprophagy, the cecum has other functions. So let's imagine that a rabbit has just eaten a healthy meal of grasses.
Got it.
Right? The grasses, they go through the stomach, they go into the small intestine, and there's absorption of nutrients, digestion takes place.
Right.
Any undigested food in all the fiber then heads into the large intestine. Now, if you don't know your digestive tract, the large intestine, also called the colon, that's the section that goes from the small intestine to the poop chute, to the anus. All right?
Got it. We're using technical terms here.
It's at that point, going from the small intestine to the large, that the rabbit's digestive system sorts the material into two piles, or into two portions.
Whoa, like a coin sorter,
Yeah.
but inside of a body.
So one pile is stuff that can be further broken down and used, and that which cannot.
Wow.
So the stuff that can't be broken down any further, that's indigestible fiber, includes that, passes directly into the large intestine. Here, there's any water that's can be reabsorbed and the material is passed. Now that makes up those round, dry pellets that you would normally think of
I see.
when you think of rabbit poop.
Right.
But the
Oh,
material...
because the rabbit poop you see is the stuff they didn't eat again.
Correct.
There we go.
It's the stuff that they have no more use for.
Right.
But the material that can be broken down further, and that's mostly soluble fiber and then proteins, that takes a left turn into the cecum. And in there's large colonies of bacteria, microorganisms, and they ferment that material,
Oh.
turning the fiber into digestible stuff, digestible nutrients. Some of it's directly absorbed through the wall of the cecum, and the rest is excreted. And the cecum does a nice job of wrapping it up, putting a bow on it, packaging it into a small, moist pellet called a cecotrope. And that's consumed by the rabbit as it's being passed. So as it
Nice.
comes out, the rabbit just bends around and
Oh, so this type of poop doesn't even really hit the ground.
you're not going to find it.
So,
No.
Right, because I was imagining it hitting the ground and then them immediately eating it.
No.
They just kind of go out and, it just dispenses right
It's
into
like
their
a-
mouth like a little Tic Tac.
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to say an M&M dispenser. but-
Sure, right.
Yeah.
A Pez dispenser.
The grossest Pez dispenser ever. So that is going to go through the entire digestive system again, so the rabbit's going to get the additional nutrients.
Yeah.
So these soft feces,
It's almost like there's not enough grass around for them just to get nutrients straight up.
well, it's just so tough, I think I've said on an episode before, I went to a conference a bunch of years ago on, it's called The World on Your Plate, and it's all about like eating from an environmental perspective.
Oh, interesting.
And I went to this session on edible plants, and I knew right away the person running it, their expertise was a little questionable. I really think they mostly hired this person because they had long hair and had a very easygoing attitude.
Right.
Because at one point the person said, maple leaves are all over. You can eat maple leaves, you can eat them. And I'm just sitting there thinking, well, yeah, you can, but your body's not going to be able to do much with that.
Right,
Our bodies
right.
just aren't designed to eat maple leaves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's
So-
not much to it.
No, we don't have this process. Thankfully, in my opinion. So these soft feces, as compared to the hard ones, they contain 3 times the amount of nitrogen, 4 to 6 times the B complex vitamins, 80% more protein, and then all the required riboflavin and pantothenic acid, and 40% more vitamin B12. They're
Nice.
like little multivitamins. So it's
Wow.
that time in the cecum and that bacterial synthesis that happens there that makes these nutrients available to the animal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's actually a circadian rhythm attached to this.
Okay.
So if you remember, the original scientific literature, the first mention of it, said that these soft pellets come out at night, the dry pellets come out during the day.
Right.
That's the part that researchers who figured out this is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, going through this, like the people that research this, they gotta be the most interesting people at parties. Like a person that would devote their life to studying animal poop
Yeah.
in this fashion.
I was gonna say you're laying the sarcasm on thick.
I don't know. I'm not really.
I mean, you would be interested in it, but
That's true.
yeah.
How many other people?
I think these people leave their work at work, if I had to guess.
You would hope so. So there's a circadian rhythm to this. At least in the lab, rabbits seem to perform this function during the first 7 to 9 hours of daylight. So the first section of the day, it's almost like, you know how my day's begun?
Yeah.
I'm eating poop out of my anus.
Right.
That's how I know my day's begun. The rest of the time, the hard pellets come out about once every hour. So it's a morning thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the research, it did come up that some people that study this,
Mm-hmm.
they say this behavior in rabbits shouldn't be called coprophagia. Because they say since cecotropes aren't technically waste, some have said that this behavior should be called cecotrophy. So I think that's splitting poop. I think we can safely lump it in.
Wow.
If it's coming out your poop chute,
Right.
it's poop, right?
Yeah, right.
All right. Now, even more interesting.
By the way, I'm agreeing with you, but at the same time, I get it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
I think
do.
you get it. You get
I
it.
do.
But,
I do get it.
But
It's a lumper
so
and a
weird.
splitter.
Right. And it's also like relative to what we're used to. Like we don't have food poop and waste poop. We don't have that, you know.
Right.
So
And I think also if you're someone who studies this constantly, this is like,
Right.
hey, this is a big difference, right?
yeah. And I will also say that I don't really think about rabbit buttholes very often. But I have a feeling just the way that the pellet is, I don't think rabbits ever have to wipe, unlike humans. You know what I mean? So I have a feeling that their anus might be a little bit cleaner than ours, you know? That's
don't
just
know.
my guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of fur back there.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what they're eating.
Maybe,
Right?
maybe, you're right.
Anyone who has a dog or cat can back me up on this. All right. So one of the most fascinating parts of this research, and I'm not being sarcastic,
Despite all of it.
Yeah. is the effect this has on the gut and the microflora in the gut and how important this is for wildlife. This process starts early in a lot of the animals that practice it, early in their life. For example, young jackrabbits, and I got to point out a jackrabbit is actually a hare, right? They start to ingest the feces of their mothers even before weaning. Right?
Oh.
So this is like the first thing. And by the time they're weaned, they habitually eat their own poop.
Oh, that's gross.
And
So wait, so obviously rabbits are mammals, so they're you know, is that what you call it? Breastfeeding, I guess? So the baby rabbits are
Technically.
getting milk
from mom.
and cookies.
Nice.
Gross.
Milk and cookies, yes. But what they get for mom, from the mom's feces, that establishes the intestinal microflora.
Oh,
Right.
that's not unseen with people. Aren't there not surgeries, but there's like fecal transplants.
Yes.
Yeah. Were you
Yes.
gonna bring that up?
I actually was,
Yeah.
because I do have to recommend Stuff You Should Know did an episode on fecal transplants. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Like just where medicine is headed
Yeah.
in terms of the gut and what we're finding out. Crazy.
Ah,
right.
So weird though.
It is.
Yeah.
But again, it's not uncommon.
Right.
It's uncommon to people, right? But it's not uncommon among wildlife.
Right.
So these behaviors, it's perfect. They've been noted not just among rabbits, rodents, but among the young of elephants, giant pandas, koalas, hippos. When these animals are born, their intestines are basically sterile. They don't contain this bacteria. And without coprophagy, they would be unable to get sufficient nutrients from the plants they're eating, right?
Wow.
So by constantly re-inoculating these organisms into the gut, they just keep that bacterial spectrum alive.
Wow.
So if it stops, the bacterial flora changes. There was one study where a researcher fitted rats with tail cups that prevented them from eating their feces.
Oh, okay. I see.
So they put, a little cup on there.
Yeah.
And in these rats, the lactobacilli in their cecum decreased significantly. So that's an important kind of bacteria.
Yeah.
Control rats without the tail cups had 5 times the lactobacilli than rats with tail cups. And then research shows that if you prevent coprophagy, it decreases weight gain. So the young fail to thrive. Prevention in one study depressed the growth rate in young rats by as much as 20%.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, crazy.
Right.
This holds true for rabbits and some other mammals as well. So there's researchers out there preventing animals in the lab from eating the poop. They're just like, I don't know if they're like sitting there waiting for the poop to come out because the animals are going to eat it as soon as it comes out.
Right.
They're like, nope.
Right.
And these animals are probably like, what the? So again, eating the feces, it provides nitrogen, protein, sulfur, numerous vitamins. One study that restricted the diets of rabbits found so what they're doing in this study, they restricted the diet, so the food that was going in.
Mm-hmm.
These rabbits consumed up to 100% of the soft feces to make up for the lack of nutrients.
Oh.
So that does show, though, that sometimes they don't get all of the soft feces.
Okay.
Right? Because you were mentioning before that we probably couldn't find them. It's probably unlikely they eat a lot of them, but not all of them.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to get into some other animals. We've really focused on rabbits and rodents.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
And people.
And people, that's right. So in pigs, they can actually get an iron deficiency if this practice is prevented. Okay? Because adult swine feces, and this is the young eating the feces of their parents, because adult swine feces are rich in iron. In piglets, they ingest about 20 grams of their mother's poop a day.
Wow.
Steve just has this constant gross face on.
Yeah.
I did mention non-human primates. It's been observed in prosimians. Do you know what those are?
Prosimians.
Yeah. Animals like lemurs.
Okay.
Okay. Certain groups of lemurs, rhesus monkeys, bush babies, and pottos. So I'd never heard of a potto before, but
Neither have I.
it's just one of these, like rainforest animals, incredibly cute with the big eyes, the long fingers. It also occurs in marmosets when the marmosets have a protein diet lower than 6%. So if they're not getting a lot of protein, they're like, well, guess I'm eating poop.
So I actually have a quick question about the pigs.
Yes.
So you were talking about if the young couldn't eat their mother's poop, they would have a iron deficiency.
Yep.
Did they test the male pigs, the adult male pigs' poop to see if that has high iron amounts in it? Because I'm wondering if it's something that, for some reason, the mother produces for the babies.
Yeah.
Or is it something? Oh, I called them babies. There are technical terms, right?
Piglets.
So piglet, yeah. I do wonder if there's a difference between the mother and the father.
And the father.
Yeah.
I did see some mentions in rats that the young rats eat from both the parents.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay.
But in that particular study, it just said adult swine feces. It didn't differentiate between the two. So that's some further research for you, Steve.
I have a feeling that means both the mother and the father, but I guess we can't say for sure.
Now, I was just talking about non-human primates. I do have to say that in that group, it doesn't serve as a major source of nutrients like it does in rats, rabbits, and other groups. So depending on which animal you're talking about, coprophagy is more important, might be less important depending on the animal.
I see.
All right. So earlier in the episode, we came across some dogs, and we mentioned that dogs do like to eat poop.
Right.
So I did want to look into that. So just a small sidebar here. The American Kennel Club, they actually had a interesting article called "Why Does My Dog Eat Poop and How to Stop It?" So they did say that a lot of dogs, if they're just eating processed dog foods, they can lack critical digestive enzymes. So they're missing stuff. So they might try to gain those things from consuming fecal matter.
Interesting.
Right? And they did say this is an evolutionary behavior that dogs probably used a lot more in their evolutionary history, staving off starvation. You're going to eat what's available, especially if you're hungry. The danger of eating poop might be outweighed by the danger of starvation.
Sure.
But they went on to say most dogs will only consume fecal matter that is less than 2 days old. And then it's most common in multi-dog households.
Is it autocoprophagy or allocoprophagy?
It's both.
It's both. Okay.
Yeah, because typically dogs will not eat their own poop. They might eat the poop of other dogs and other animals. Like our dog, we have to keep the litter boxes away because the dog will go in and have some litter box treats.
Right.
So gross.
Yeah, that's pretty
Right?
gross. So not just other dogs, other animals in general.
So poop eating dogs, they're not harder to house train than any other dog. Female dogs are more likely to eat poop. And intact males were the least likely.
When you say intact, you mean
Not fixed.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. They didn't explain like this. They basically looked through research and then put what they found, but they didn't explain like any
Right.
theories about why this is.
I mean, you could imagine that there's some hormonal differences between a fixed
Sure.
and a non-fixed male.
Definitely, there definitely
or
are.
female as well. Yeah. So
90% of poop eaters want the fresh stuff, only 1 or
Right.
2 days old.
I mean, but that kind of tracks with what we've seen with more serious
Yes.
coprophagy,
Yep.
where they want the fresh stuff, not the dry stuff. So
And if you're a greedy dog, if like dogs that steal food off tables,
Uh-huh.
you tend to be a poop eater.
oh, interesting.
And then
So they're just hungry. Let's face it.
they're just really hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing that I'll wrap up with in mammals, or actually 2 things. So cattle, did you know that cattle in the U.S., they're often fed chicken litter? And chicken litter is basically what's scooped up from the bottom of the chicken house. So it's chicken poop, feathers, all this stuff.
I mean, it makes some sense, I guess.
Yeah, so, but that is one thing that has people worried about passing on mad cow disease, because apparently somewhere along the way, like cow parts get in there. So I started to look into it, and it just seemed like, oh my gosh, this could almost be an episode unto itself.
Okay.
But cattle are fed chicken poop essentially within their feed, within their larger feed.
Yeah, that's weird.
And then on rare occasions, gorillas have been observed consuming feces, but the research said it's probably out of boredom or a desire for warm food.
Man, primates are awful.
But that one, like a desire for warm food, I'm like, how would you make that connection? Like,
Well, okay, I would say, I mean, how much food in the natural world is very warm?
right, exactly.
Uh,
Maybe it was captive gorillas that had been fed warm food. I don't know.
I don't
But
know.
I read that. I'm like, wait a minute. What does a gorilla know from warm food?
Yeah.
They're like, eating
Although
some-
poop, is it warmer? It can't be warmer than your body temperature, can it be?
Well, I mean,
oh, unless because there
when
is
it comes
like
out, right?
it would be
It's going to be pretty close.
it would be really really close to your
Yeah.
body temperature. But I know with like manure piles and stuff, there's a lot of heat
Oh, yeah.
generated in those from fermentation, right?
Right.
So I want. Is poop all that warm? I mean, yeah. So these gorillas were eating steaks, right? And then they couldn't get them, so they started eating shit. So steaming piles of shit. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Makes
if someone's
sense.
walking by and listening to us talk,
They're like, I am not listening to that podcast. I'm guessing that they're recording.
normally when I'm doing research,
Yeah.
I'll share, interesting tidbits I found around the dinner
Right.
table. Not over the past month.
not this one. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
All right, so I just have a little bit more, and then Steve's going to jump in
Sure.
here. So if we're going to talk about coprophagia, eating poop, you got to talk about insects.
Okay.
There are literally thousands of species of insects that eat poop, especially among the flies and the beetles, right?
Okay.
Diptera and Coleoptera.
Oh, they land on poop a lot.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, they're consuming it and they're redigesting the poop of large animals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that poop often contains substantial amounts of undigested food.
Right.
So it's just an obvious food source. So we all know about dung flies. I
Okay.
mean, commonly found around cattle droppings, but anytime you're taking a hike through the woods and you see a pile of scat, very often there are flies going around it and other insects.
Right.
Among beetles, think of dung beetles, right?
Mm-hmm. They're rolling pieces of poop into. They roll them into a hole in the ground or something, or what do they do with them?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
So there are 7,000 species of coprophagous dung beetles.
Mm.
Now keep in mind,
7,000?
7,000.
Wow. Well, beetles are like the biggest group of
Yeah.
invertebrates, right? At the
There's
very
only
least?
6,500 species of mammals.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
there's more beetles out there eating poop than there are species of mammals.
Just in this one group.
Yeah.
Just in the dung beetle group.
Just in
yeah.
the dung beetle group. All
It's
right.
amazing.
So they lay their eggs in balls composed mainly of poop.
Yeah.
Now I do got to say though that they said there were 7,000 species of coprophagous dung beetles,
Uh huh.
which beg the question: well, are there non-coprophagous dung beetles?
I was gonna say, is that redundant, or is that very much on purpose?
Right.
Yeah.
And
You know what? With my experience with a lot of other topics, I have a feeling there might be some dung beetles that aren't.
that
if I
don't-
had to guess.
that don't mess with dung.
Yeah, they're the non-dung dung beetles. Yeah.
So termites, they also eat one another's feces,
Okay.
which is
Gross.
yes. But I have to look. So what is that? Of other individuals of the same
Hetero
species?
copro-
No. Allocoprophagy.
Of the same species. Allo.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if you're eating other individuals of your species,
Right,
that's
right.
allocoprophagy.
Mm-hmm.
Now the cool part is, it sounds weird to say that, they eat one another's feces to obtain hindgut protists.
Oh,
So there's
weird.
a symbiotic relationship there.
Okay.
The protists, they allow the termites to digest the cellulose in their diet.
So the protists are like a mutualist.
Yes.
Yeah, there's like a mutualism going on
The
between...
protists get the cellulose,
Mhm.
and the termites, they get
I see.
the nutrients from the cellulose they digest.
Right. Because a protist, that can be like a parasite sometimes.
Oh,
It
sure.
can be, yeah.
Yeah. Now, what about birds?
Birds?
Are birds coprophagic, you think?
I see. I don't know, because when I think of birds, like young birds, sometimes they'll even. So some birds full on just poop all in their nest, and their nest is really disgusting. Other birds put their rear end out the side of the nest so the poop doesn't like fill up the nest.
Right.
So there's a bit of variation there.
I think with any animal group,
Yeah.
like the answer is usually some of them do.
I bet some of them eat shit.
Some of them do.
Yeah.
What I'm going to talk about is the fecal sac. There are different groups of birds that will eat the poop
Okay.
of other birds or their own poop. But we're going to focus on passerines,
Okay.
these perching birds, and the fecal sac. Because, as you said, a lot of times what young birds will do is they'll stick their rear end over the edge of the nest and poop out. But a lot
Right.
of them, when they poop, it comes out in a sac that's covered in mucus.
Really?
Yeah, a mucus-covered sac.
Man, I'm just picturing the like kind of white and black stuff that gets kind of squirted out of the birds.
Right.
Yeah.
But the fecal sac, it's like a little pouch.
Okay.
And
you said this is most birds?
a lot of passerines will do this. I
lot
don't,
of
I don't want to say most.
So you said perching birds, also known as like songbirds, I
Right.
guess. So these are the small little birds that like warblers and
yeah,
sparrows.
but also robins,
robins,
blue jays,
yeah.
bluebirds.
Oh yeah, so little is relative.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, relative. So some birds will actually eat the fecal sac. When it comes out of the young, the parent will eat it.
Okay.
Why do they do this? Well, the best.
Because they owe them.
No.
I brought you into this world. I'm gonna eat your fecal sac.
Okay, maybe. Because the best guess, the one with the most research,
They're
is that-
recouping nutrients.
Yes.
There we go.
It's a little shot of nutrition.
right.
Parents are going to do that because the nestlings can't completely digest all the
Ah.
food they eat.
It would just go to waste anyway.
Right. So there's still energy and nutrients in there, right?
Interesting.
Now, some parents, they're going to eat the fecal sacs throughout the whole nesting period, but some only do it at the beginning.
Right. It's like charging rent.
But no. Some researchers say this is probably because as the young get older, they get better at digesting their food. So maybe it's not worth the risk of digesting that.
Okay, I see.
So not all birds that produce fecal sacs, the parents, not all of them eat it. Some, they just transport it somewhere else.
Oh.
So
So if they don't eat it, it's just not. I see. So it's not just that they're eating it instead of the young. Sometimes they're just removing it from the young, so the young can't eat it.
no, not so the young can't eat it. We're not sure. There's no evidence that the young are going to eat it.
Sure.
They may be removing it, one, to keep the nest clean, to prevent bacteria, parasites. Also, to prevent odor, to attract predators.
That's a good point.
So there's lots of ideas about why certain birds might be removing it.
Right.
Okay? So it seems like some passerines remove it, some eat it,
I see.
some eat it just at the beginning of nesting, some eat it all the way through nesting.
Right. So as long as it's not in the nest, so there's a lot of reasons. So the young won't eat it, so it won't just sit there and decay and rot and attract other things.
Yeah.
So and obviously that's messy stuff. So
Right.
yeah. So you just don't want that sitting around.
And there's a lot of great videos out there around fecal sacs. We'll post one in the episode notes.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing one of these videos.
Yeah, it's set to some beautiful music.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. So that is what I had besides coprophagia in plants,
Yeah.
but apparently that is what Steve did some research on. So that being said, I think this is a good place to stop because off mic, Steve and I were talking that we both did probably more research than we had initially planned.
Yeah.
And we feel this is really enough for a 2-part episode.
Yeah.
So even though we just did a 2-part episode, but we didn't release last month. So
Although last month we didn't have to do that much work for it, where this month I imagine we did a little bit more. So
it was a lot of work.
I will say you did a lot of work. I did absolutely no work whatsoever. So
All right, there you
Yeah.
go. So this is going to be a 2-parter, folks. So we actually are going to do a wrap up here. And before we wrap up, though, we want to give a shout out to the episode sponsor, Gum Leaf USA.
if you're out on the trail like Bill and I are right now, Definitely wearing a pair of tall rubber boots is a really good idea. I just assumed, because of where we are right now at Hunter's Creek, that I wouldn't need tall rubber boots. And to get to where we had to get to, in order to not be in the rain and the wind, we had to cross a little creek.
And I'm wearing my gum leaf boots.
So Bill just stomped through like it was nothing, and I tried to go from rock to rock, and I don't know if you heard me behind you, but my foot slipped off into the water.
I did.
So yeah, I'm regretting not wearing mine. Mine are even in my trunk too, so yeah.
So I'm wearing the Royal Zip, and folks, they are hands down my favorite pair of rubber boots. When I first got them, I was worried they wouldn't be great in the wintertime, but I even wear them in the wintertime. So they do have a thin lining, but that's usually enough to keep my feet warm, unless it's a super, super cold day. But the folks at Gumleaf, they've been kind enough to provide us with an offer code to provide patrons of the podcast with free shipping. So if you're a patron, you can check that out on our Patreon website, right?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll post that coupon code on our Patreon, but I'll just make it so it's for patrons only.
Right.
Yep, so that's how you'll get a hold of that code.
But whether you're a patron or not, please check out gumleafusa.com.
Yep.
And folks, stick around, because number 2,
Oh, no.
the second part of this episode on eating poop is coming right up.
All right.